Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So currently in the temporary setup. Hopefully this looks okay. And by the way, I apologize about all the car videos all the time. It's just been, life has just been super crazy over these past couple of months, really since mid-November. So I appreciate you guys hanging in and whatnot. So with that said, in this one, I wanted to break down a couple of free agent options, 6 to be exact, for the New York Jets. Now funny enough, I actually have this whole notebook filled with I want to say right now, 18, 19 free agent breakdowns. I have so many video ideas planned throughout the course of the next couple of weeks, just free agency stuff, draft stuff, a lot of things that I'm really excited to dive into. But for now, I wanted to focus in on just 6 in this one, guys that I feel like would come in at major positions of need, guys that would come in and really help not only just the on-field product, giving the Jets, production, but also stability as well as upside. Right, so with that being said, let's dive into the first prospect here. This is somebody who is, the thought of him in New York gets me fired up. It's wide receiver from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans. Now, Evans' resume speaks for itself, right? 6'5", massive wingspan and catch radius, humongous red zone threat. He looks like a power forward or a center playing wide receiver, out on islands, on the outside. This is somebody who just frankly bullies cornerbacks. He gets really physical, and literally every single year, doesn't matter the coach, doesn't matter the system, doesn't matter the quarterback, he produces. We all know the stat: 1,000 plus receiving yards since he's entered the NFL back in 2014. This guy's a legitimate wide receiver. And yes, he could be back with the Buccaneers. The Bucs are a playoff team, and I'm pumped for Tampa, right? Todd Bowles, Baker Mayfield, love the story. But in the event that Tampa wants to continue down, the path that it seemed like they were maybe going to go down earlier this, in the previous offseason, which was, let's maybe save money and kind of reload as opposed to blow it up and rebuild. If Evans hits the free agency market, the thought of him on the opposite side of Garrett Wilson with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the football, my lord, how is Breece Hall in the backfield? How do you, if you're a defensive coordinator, you are going to sleep the night prior against playing the Jets, you're who do we guard? Who do we double team? We can't do it. And by the way, I know Mike Evans does seem like the wide receiver that's been around for so long, but he's only 30 years old. It kind of feels like he's 34, 35, at least for me personally, but he's only 30. Again, I still feel like he has a lot of, gas left in the tank to continue to produce. And again, if he's coming to a Jets team with, Aaron Rodgers at the helm, of course he's going to get looks, no matter, where he's at on the field, no matter who's calling plays. Now, I wanted to focus in on offensive tackle. We look at free agency. Offensive tackles aren't really all over the place. There's not really that many top end ones. There's no Trent Brown. There's no Orlando Brown. There's not really guys in that A+ tier. But there's a player out there that I feel like would be a great fit for the Jets. He's not elite. I view this player as a consistent starter, and the second he walks into the Jets locker room, he would be the best tackle on the team. It's Jonah Williams, a former first-round pick from the Cincinnati Bengals. This is somebody who can play left tackle or right tackle, so he does bring that positional versatility. I feel like, again, he's a consistent starter at either spot. And as we all know, we're looking at the Jets offensive line. Who's going to be the starting left tackle? We don't know. Who's going to be the starting right tackle? We don't know. So I feel like if the Jets want to, delegate some of their cap space on maybe day one of free agency to just go get a consistent starter, right? Somebody who plays, somebody who's durable. Yes, he had the labrum issue his first season. Coming out of Alabama, I believe he actually got hurt in training camp before the season even started for Cincy. But since then, he's been on he's played a ton. In fact, he started in 48 consecutive games for the Bengals and 58 total since he's came into the league. So Williams, again, positional versatility. He's a seasoned vet. He can play on either side of the line, either side of the ball. I think, because the Jets have a humongous need at both spots, Jonah Williams could be a smart play, because it's hey, if we just get this guy under contract, again, The second he walks into the locker room, he's the best tackle on the team, probably that day. And then on top of it, if maybe if Douglas wants to pursue a trade with like a star left tackle, boom, we could just move Williams over to right. If we're on the clock at pick number 10, and whoever it may be, JC Latham, Fuaga from Oregon State, if either of those guys are the pick, they can just slide in at right tackle, and then boom, Jonah Williams can pop over to left tackle. And then all of a sudden we have 2 upgrades at the position. So I think Jonah Williams is, certainly an interesting option. I'm not really looking at Williams as a top 3, top 5 tackle in football, but for the Jets specifically, I feel like he checks off a lot of different, questions that this team frankly needs heading into the offseason. Okay, so next up, we're flipping back to wide receiver here, 26-year-old from the Indianapolis Colts, Michael Pittman. This is a guy who definitely sounds like he wants to explore options in free agency. It doesn't really sound like he's 100% totally bought back in to Indianapolis and is going to be signing with them, no questions asked. It really feels like he's going to take visits and he's going to have a bunch of offers, and rightfully so. Again, at 26 years old, former second-round pick out of USC, Michael Pittman has great size. He's 6'4", provides a lot of positives. I don't really think he has that that Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase upside. But I think he's a real high floor type of player. I think he would be a great complement to Garrett Wilson on the outside. He's coming off the best season of his career, had over 1,000 receiving yards for the Colts. And, we look at the Colts, rookie head coach in Shane Steichen, and for the majority of the year, they were actually rolling out backup Gardner Minshew. Kind of going down, the rabbit hole here. But hey, if Gardner Minshew's the veteran backup that Douglas wants to target, and we also bring in a Michael Pittman, boom, we have 2 guys that already have chemistry right off the bat. Obviously, with Aaron Rodgers, he can make it work with pretty much anybody. Another thing that I really like about Michael Pittman is the fact that he plays, right? 62 career games in 4 years. Michael Pittman does not have many injury concerns. He's not, an off-the-field headache or anything like that. I feel like if we sign Michael Pittman to a multi-year contract, I mean, it's tough because we have Allen Lazard on the roster and he's getting paid quite a lot. Luckily, though, Garrett Wilson is still on his rookie deal, so Wilson is obviously the one. And then in this scenario, Pittman slides perfectly in to that number 2 spot where he can just, make those solid plays over the middle of the field, provide size. Again, 6'4", I want to say he's like around that 220 mark. I feel like it would be a great fit. He's not going to command top dollar like a T. Higgins, who's going to be hitting the market, or potentially Mike Evans, who we talked about before. So, and also, when comparing him to Mike Evans, Pittman 4 years younger. So theoretically, we can go out and sign him to a 4-year contract. By the time that deal is over, he's Mike Evans' age today. So I think it's something to think about. At the end of the day, though, the Jets got to make a move at wide receiver. In fact, I got like 7-8 more wide receivers here that I really want to break down, but I'm going to do that in a separate video. Moving on to the next player here, veteran backup quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. Throughout the course of Tannehill's Titans career, he's been a game manager. And, I don't look at the term game manager as a bad thing, not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. I look at Tannehill as a guy who doesn't really turn the football over that much. He wins a bunch of games. He hands the ball off to Derrick Henry. Works really well off of play action. He doesn't get flustered. He doesn't get, too chaotic. He doesn't get crazy back there in the pocket. He can go through his reads, go through his progressions, and run an offense. Run a normal offense. And with Tannehill, you're not going to get the crazy highs. Although his career kind of started that way in Miami, he was just throwing for tons of yards, tons of touchdowns. But with Tennessee, he whether it was the coaching staff or Tannehill himself trying to morph his game, in a different way, he really reeled it in and became a solid, consistent NFL starter. Nobody ever talks about Tannehill being, a top 10 quarterback, even when he was putting up great numbers and the Titans were winning a bunch of games. And granted, whenever you have like the league's best running back, a great coaching staff, right, a great offensive line, chances are you're going to be productive offensively. You're going to be productive as a quarterback, but at this point right now, going into 2024, Ryan Tannehill, he can go to a spot and win a job. 100%. Right? For example, like if Arthur Smith gets an OC job, right? Say Vrabel gets hired somewhere, or Arthur Smith is the OC, he could bring his guy Tannehill in and potentially have that early head start on winning a job. I could definitely see that happening, maybe in like New England or something like that. But I think if the Jets want to prioritize, we got to get one of the top end backups, because we don't know with Aaron Rodgers. We don't know what our offensive line situation is going to be looking like. We need to lock down that position. I think out of the available guys right now, although Tannehill might be the most expensive, he is easily the best option. Now we can go in a bunch of different directions. Again, a lot of names I want to break down here in the notebook. Quick little preview like Mariota, Gardner Minshew, Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett, Tyrod Taylor, tons of names out there, a lot of cheaper options. But again, if we are swinging for the fences and we want to lock down that backup position, in the event that we do lose Rodgers, Tannehill can step in, and I could see the Jets offense continuing to push along and continue to look productive. Hopefully, if the coaching staff has these guys playing good ball. Okay, so next up, this one's pretty interesting because I feel like it's more, not necessarily a shot in the dark, but more of a roll of the dice compared to like a Jonah Williams. This player can play guard, he can play tackle, specifically left tackle. It's Andres Pete from the New Orleans Saints. This is somebody, former first-round pick. In the first 3 seasons of his career, he looked great. He was ultra productive. I mean, we all know the New Orleans Saints to, consistently roll out good offensive lines. They're coached well. Again, Pete has had some elite seasons early on for those New Orleans teams, but as of late, he's dealt with some injuries. He's missed some time. His production has dipped a little bit. I don't necessarily know if the Saints want to bring him back or not, but it could be an interesting option, right? If Douglas maybe misses out on some of the top targets that will command a lot of money. Say, for example, we're shooting for T. Higgins and he signs elsewhere. We go for Mike Evans and he signs elsewhere. And a couple days into free agency, the Jets are the team that is on the outside looking in. They haven't really cashed in on a player. Andres Pete could be an interesting option. Again, with the positional versatility, I hate that I have to keep bringing it up, but I mean, look at how valuable AVT is for the team. Left guard, right tackle, left tackle. I mean, the guy, he's playing wherever. Like, he's like the lifeline of the Jets offensive line. Andres Pete, not saying that, Pete is the same exact player as AVT, but, that would be somebody who has a really high ceiling. We've seen top end seasons, but it is admittedly more so of a riskier signing as opposed to maybe a more consistent player out there. And last but not least, guard from the Detroit Lions, Jonah Jackson. Another interesting case study here. This is somebody who has a ton of power. You look at the Lions offensive line. I mean, they have literally been one of the best in the NFL for the past couple of seasons. Jackson came in immediately as a mid-round rookie, 3rd-round pick out of Ohio State, and started right out of the gate. Day 1 starter, has 57 career games under his belt in 4 years. I mean, you look at those previous 3 seasons, he was rock solid in the running game. I mean, Jonah Jackson was all over the place. So, one of my buddies is a diehard Lions fan, and he freaking loves Jonah Jackson. But this season, there's been a bit of a dip. A lot of people were expecting Jackson to take that next step, and to potentially be one of the top left guards in football, but it didn't really happen. Not only just that, it looked like he was taking steps backwards. As far as bringing him back, that's obviously up in the air now for Detroit. So this could be a situation where if the Jets maybe cash in on a wide receiver, they cash in on a tackle, and they want to buy low on a Jonah Jackson and hope for the best, hope that he can, return to form. Because it wasn't just a one-year wonder. It was 3 consecutive great seasons for Jackson on a rookie contract. And again, in his contract season, just didn't really stay at that consistent level up at the top, started to dip down. So a buy low situation for Joe Douglas. I think this would be really interesting. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. Expect a ton of free agency stuff, a ton of draft stuff coming out over the next couple weeks, couple months until we get to those critical dates, right? When free agency opens up. And I think the draft is on like April 28th or April 29th or something like that. Crazy stuff. I cannot wait to just, attack this offseason. Cannot wait to see what the Jets do. I do feel like there's going to be that heightened sense of urgency because everybody's jobs are on the line, right? Douglas, Saleh, Hackett, there's so much pressure. It could tip the scale in the favor of being more aggressive in these, areas to go out and acquire talent. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.